Welcome to the Level 1 Lounge, where we give our uneducated take on anything and everything gaming. Today, we are joined by our guest host, Monster, who's returned from his vacation from Cuba. A lucky SOB. Of course, you may know him from In My House podcast. We also have Irish Bandit Rob.
Yep.
And also, of course, Ryder Pride. See, I got it right this time.
Yeah.
Here we go.
So we're going to kick things off today. We're going to be getting back into March Madness. But of course, we're going to hit the power button, start our boot up. So grab your controllers and strap in. So today's topic, we have a question is, what games did you almost sleep on? One that you're kind of not sure about. And then what made you pick it up and play it? So let's start with our guest, of course. So, Monster, you want to fill us in? What game did you almost pass on and eventually pick up and enjoy?
I'd say Bloodborne was probably the one after playing Demon Souls on the PS3. Like, saw archaic design, then being like, this isn't revolutionary. This is just taking old elements in terms of gameplay, trying to package it as something new. But Bloodborne opened my eyes again to all of the Souls-like games. That world and that combat, like, really clicked in that one. But I'd say anything on the PS5 right now that I'm currently sleeping on until I get one. There's a huge list of games. Like, as much as I talk a lot of smack regarding Final Fantasy VII Remake and Rebirth, I'm going to play them both. I'm going to play Final Fantasy 16. I'm going to play these games. There's a great library of stuff like Spider-Man's, like, that I want to try, right? Like Helldivers 2. There's plethora of games I'm currently sleeping on that I will get to, but I usually tend not to. There's usually stuff that's on my radar always that I grab and go. But Bloodborne, having a PS4 and then finally being like, okay, let's try these again, just opened my eyes. And now, like, you go back and you're like, play Dark Souls, Dark Souls 2, Dark Souls 3, Sekiro, Elden Ring. Like, I went through the gambit of them. So I'd say, yeah, Bloodborne was the one
When you
I
pick up your
slept on.
PlayStation 5, they do have Demon Souls Remastered, which I'm sure is going to be high up on your list as well.
I'd say getting a PS5, there's stuff like Returnal, because when I first tried it on the Steam Deck, it just didn't run how I wanted it to. That would probably be the top of my list. Obviously, you're playing Helldivers 2, and then I would probably start into something longer, knowing that remakes on that PlayStation catalog. Start a bigger game like that, and then start working my way through the list.
Fair enough. All right, Irish Bandit, how about yourself? Was there a game that you almost slept on but then picked up and enjoyed?
I guess you could kind of say there were a couple games that I slept on. If you want to put it in that terms, the two that come to mind for me are actually games that I've talked about before on the podcast: Doki Doki Literature Club and Bendy and the Ink Machine. I really got into those games by watching other streamers play them, especially Doki Doki. So when I started playing that, it was a moment of finally getting what this game was about. Even though I've seen guys, streamers like Markiplier, Game Grumps, Jacksepticeye play before, I saw the full playthrough of all their playthroughs, but playing it for myself was a completely different experience. And same could be said for Bendy and the Ink Machine as well, because that was such a well done game. But for me, those would be the two.
So you picked it up because of streamers that you were
Pretty
following.
much.
Yeah.
Pretty much,
Okay.
yeah.
How about you there, Ryder Pride?
I'd say probably the one that I almost passed on was the original or the original release of Division 2. I never did play the original, like the first Division, and really wasn't that big into the whole Tom Clancy scene, except for playing competitive Rainbow Six Siege every so often with a few friends. But these same few friends actually told me about Division 2. It's like, well, if you like RPGs, you should really try this one out. I'm like, I don't know if I really like an RPG shooter, which is hilarious coming from me, who's also a huge Borderlands fan. But anyway, so they convinced me to sign up for the Division 2 beta test, and I tried it out and just instantly fell in love with it. So I got a chance to play with some friends then. Unfortunately, at the time when I wasn't able to stream it because the game was so CPU intensive, and it was basically choking my streams to death. I couldn't stream it at all. Like I was basically streaming at about 1.5 frames per second. It was awful. So I just ended up playing it off stream. But I'm really glad that I did pick it up. I was going to pass on it initially just because I didn't think it would be up my alley. But after playing through the beta and playing through I think it's like the first 4 or 5 missions or something like that is what the beta test provided for it. I had an absolute blast of it. It was a ton of fun. Bought the game, played through it. I didn't pick up the expansion, unfortunately. By the time that came around, I'd already focused on other stuff. But yeah, Division 2 was one that I almost slept on, but I'm 100% glad I picked that one up.
Funny story for me with Division 2, just since we're on the subject. I played the beta, hated it. I thought the AI was jank. It just, to me, I didn't enjoy it. Then Chewy picked it up, and then I had a group of buddies that I was gaming with, and every single one of them picked it up. I'm like, damn it. Now I got to get it because it's going to be one of those games that
peer
and you know what?
pressure.
Yeah, and I picked it up and I absolutely love it. I picked it up on my Xbox Series X and on my PlayStation 5, so I could play with friends on both consoles. So my pick, I have talked a little bit about my favorite game ever made, which is The Witcher 3. I was very, very, very close to actually skipping out on it entirely. I can't remember what was in the pipe that within that time frame when it came out, and it was a few months after the release. And I was so excited about a certain game, and I couldn't I don't remember to this day. I don't know I can't remember what it was. And I went into EB at the time, and I started looking around, and The Witcher 3 was sitting on the shelf, and didn't know anything about it. And I'm like, yeah, this might be up my alley. I'm going to pick it up and try it. Tried it, and I played it for about 2 or 3 hours, and I actually disliked it for a little while. Then I watched a couple YouTube videos, got a little bit more understanding of the character. I jumped back into it about 6 months later. Absolutely love it. I've got 1,000 hours into that game now, and it's one that I would jump into all the time. I've actually mentioned it off of our podcast that if I had to pick one game to play for the rest of my life, it would be that game. And it just happened to be the right time in the right place in that situation for me to pick that one up. So we've kind of got that out of the way. We've got quite a bit to go through, so we're going to just move right along. So systems powered up. Let's get into level 1. So we have some news I'd like to touch base on here real quick. So first of all, there are a couple games that are going to be making its way to games coming to PC that were announced here this week. Ghost of Tsushima Director's Cut is actually going to be making its way to PC as of May 16th. And also Horizon Forbidden West, the complete edition, is coming out really quick around the corner here on March 21st. Now, both of these games I've played. I absolutely love both of these games as well. But to be honest, I am hoping that they don't release broken. It seems to be kind of a running thing with Sony when they release these games on PC, I guess with the exception of Helldivers lately, that when there's these PC ports, they're kind of broken. You guys have any thoughts about these games coming through that maybe being broken as well, or do you think that they've had enough time to develop to push these out?
I mean, they'll come out broken. I mean that's almost basically just the way of things. When it comes to PC ports, it's almost a certainty at this stage. But I mean, that being said, they probably will fix them. They'll get to them as soon as they can, but that's just the challenge we have to deal with as PC players sometimes.
I just hope it's not as bad as The Last of Us Part 1 PC port. That was awful.
Yeah, like I don't remember hearing like God of War 2018 being so badly received when it launched on PC.
No, that's right.
I don't think Spider-Man had an issue either. Or Miles Morales, like, yeah, there's some games that it sucks. It's weird now because we're in a day where you should just dev them both at the same time. Should be
Yeah.
releasing both of them at the same time, and I think the strategy moving forward will be that. But yeah, I'm with Rider Pride. Yeah, this they have the potential to ship and not work, and you will wait 2 weeks for them to work. I still think that last Jedi game has issues on some players' PCs. So
Well, even the previous one did too.
ongoing battle. Yeah,
Yeah.
ongoing battle.
There's actually one thing that I wanted to touch base on as well in our first segment as well. So I'm just going to go back to it just with real quick here as well. And that is basically with the game prices that are coming out, what you guys are thinking of that. Like, I feel that the cost has gone up enough, and it's causing some people to sleep on games as well, just for the simple fact that these games are costing so much. Um, I mean, it's causing issues with these developers, and I think it's kind of one of the leading causes that some of these layoffs are actually occurring. But at the same time, I do think, like from my perspective, is if we're paying $90 per game in Canada, we kind of almost need to start voting with our wallets. And
Absolutely.
it's kind of a shame that it's come to that point. But I honestly I did kind of want to bring that up earlier as well. For me, I'm fortunate enough that I can kind of go through things, and I try to get reviews up, and there are times where I know Monster, you're excited about it, you've played it. Suicide Squad, I looked at it and I'm like, not only like for me, I played the beta, I couldn't get into it. I had issues with the traversal. There's no bloody way I'm going to pay for that game.
I think
Um,
I'm kind of curious. Sorry, Maverick. Rob, you said you disagreed voting with
what?
your wallet
No,
when
I
he
agree.
had said we should. You agree voting with the wallet?
Yeah.
Um,
100%.
as a consumer, you always have the choice, right?
Yeah.
yeah,
Like, always remember, like, you don't have to go and buy something. Games are going to continue to cost a lot of money. What we have seen is that those single player games you love are costing the most money to make.
and I think that's
Spider-Man 2
one.
costs $300 million. $300 million.
Yeah, but I mean, let's think about this here too. I mean, the standard price for a AAA game now is what is basically $90 Canadian, right?
Yeah,
Pretty much.
Correct.
What were the price of game? What was the price of a AAA game on console 30 years ago? 70 or
Oh,
80
man.
dollars.
60, 70
You're not
bucks.
wrong. I think
So
Earthbound, when we got it, was $109, and that was with
yeah.
that cartridge.
So I mean, now that I think that one's a bit of a unique particular case, but yeah, basically to that aspect, yeah, I mean, yeah, games were just as like almost as expensive on a consistent basis, 30 years ago. So I mean, I guess we can be kind of thankful that we're not paying $150 a game right about now if we're
yeah,
keeping up with the price of inflation and whatnot. But
that's what
yeah, but at the
that's what
same
I'm
time,
worried
It's a
about.
good point.
yeah,
But what about
but
Rockstar saying they want to charge more for Grand Theft Auto 6? They
yeah.
want to break the trend because they think their game is going to be worth more than $90. Do you still
But I
buy it? Because
will,
I will.
yeah, but I will absolutely 100% agree with you, Monster, in that, yeah, if you don't have to go out and buy every single game. If there's a game you really, really want, you're gonna buy it. I mean, take a
Oh,
look
yeah.
at me. Like, I bought the digital deluxe for Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, $129. Or was it
Yep.
$119? No.
But
Anyway,
that's
but regardless,
that's you voting with your wallet,
yeah,
right? Like, and that thing is like like that, and you knew right away as soon as it was announced you're going to pick it up.
yeah.
And
And so far, by the way, it's been worth every penny.
Sure. You know what? But it would have been worth every penny anyhow, right?
Right.
Like, as a fan for a series, even if it does like come in a little below expectations, you wouldn't feel buyer's remorse for supporting arguably your favorite game of all time.
yeah,
When
I,
when Final Fantasy VII Remake came out on Epic when it first came out on Epic, I was so hyped. I was finally going to get to play it. Then I saw the price. Was like, I am waiting until this goes on sale,
Yeah.
which is what I did. I waited
Yeah.
until it went on sale, and I had a coupon for Epic Games, so I think I knocked off like maybe $50 off of it.
Yeah, because
I
it
think
released at
that's
like
how I had to go.
$95, didn't it?
Yeah, it's still like $95.
I'm going to say this is also one of the reasons why I'm thankful for PlayStation Extra coming in the way that it is and Xbox Game Pass. That it gives you those opportunities to play these games, not only that, that you may not have tried before, but you're like, you know what, now that they're there, like I have been waiting for some of these and they're available for me to try now. Like Rebirth will likely be on PlayStation Extra, a year or two down the road. But that being said, that's the way that subscriptions are going to start working, and I think that that's going to be the direction that these companies are going to start to go. And I'm starting to feel like maybe it's not such a bad thing. I used to be
Like,
on the other side and think, you know what, I'm totally against the subscription. Now it's like this is kind of awesome. I have no problem shelling out $50 for Game Pass every 3 months to be able to play some of these games and try games that I never even thought existed.
it'll be
So
interesting to hear when we go through the news stories, when we talk about WB. I have a counter to what you're saying for players when we get there.
yeah, we'll get there shortly, but we'll move on to the next thing. So the other thing I wanted to touch base on as well, when I want to make it really really quick. I am super excited for this, but it has been leaked that there may be a Ghost of Tsushima 2 announced this year at State of Play. Um, it's one of my favorite games ever made as well. It's made the list here as well for our bracket here for March Madness. We'll get into that at some point here. Um, but I absolutely love it. I'm super excited for part 2. I know that Ryder played it a little bit,
Still
but
have to
of
finish
course
it.
yeah, kind of got sidelined by other games. I mean, I'm kind of famous for that too, so I can't really fault you on that one. Um, so the next thing that I wanted to kind of go over as well is even with the layoffs going on with EA, Respawn is still focused on, even after the cancellation of the Star Wars FPS, which we all know is a Mandalorian game. Um, they're still going to be working on Jedi Survivor, Black Panther, and Iron Man will continue as well. So, I mean, not a shocker there. Those games are going to sell. I just hope that they do those games justice because we all kind of know how EA is.
I mean, they
I
kind of
mean,
hit it
they're
out of the park with Jedi Survivor at the very least.
Yes, that's very true.
Respawn's awesome developer who works for a pretty bad publisher.
That's a fair way of saying
He's not
it.
wrong.
Yeah, like
No,
these guys made Titanfall and Titanfall 2. I want more Titanfall.
Speaking of
actually,
which,
funny
Give
you
me
should say that.
Titanfall.
yes,
Funny you should say that.
rumors
Yeah,
circulating Titanfall 3
actually, what
or
I've
something
heard
in
is
Titanfall universe.
Titanfall, something in the Titanfall universe.
Yeah.
Yes.
So it's more Apex.
All right, so we're going to move right along here as well. Though I'm going to jump to one article that I may have misplaced here. So this is one thing Monster just touched base on here a little while ago. WB is moving towards more mobile and free to play games. And my thought pattern is, and more live service games. Now, my thought pattern is this really the right move? Because take a look at how Suicide Squad is doing. It's kind of like they're taking a live service game and kind of turning into the skid. I'm not sure it's a great idea, but I'm also on the camp of I want a damn Superman game. Give me Superman. Not Superman so you can murder him, by the way, they're monster.
Oh, he'll be
But
murdered.
I
He'll be
I
murdered.
want I want an actual Superman game. I will be on that camp forever. Um so I know you're gonna want to say something, monster, so please.
Yeah, you're
You gotta
voting with your
cover.
wallet point before. I think we've talked about it on the pod before as well. What platform has the most players? We all have one in our pocket. Looks like one of these. Why are those so successful? Most of those games are free. Most of those games offer in-app purchases.
Which
Why
they
does
make a ton
games
of
like
money on
Fortnite make a ton of money?
because
You can all play
Skins.
Fortnite right now for
Yeah.
free.
Yeah.
And if you're invested, you can so choose to spend money for better cosmetics or that kind of thing. That is your choice. I love Overwatch 2. I haven't spent a dime on Overwatch 2. Yet that game makes a ton of money because the players who are very much so invested spend money on it. This works. This
I
model
wanna-
can work. Suicide Squad, yes. I can admit after playing it, there is some issues where you're like, hey, you shipped this thing for $90 in content. Same thing I complained about with Destiny. Destiny was shallow when it launched. Is empty. You waited for your weekly. You waited for the next raid, and that took a while. Suicide Squad was told, like, hey, those Arkham guys are making a live service game. Fans such as yourself, Maverick, we don't want you to do that. It's not up to you. They wanted to do it. They chose that route.
I will. You know what? I will tell you what. I will concede on one point. Paying for cosmetics, as long as it's not pay to win,
Oh,
I will
I
concede.
hate pay to win.
Oh,
I
yeah.
will-
Hate pay to win.
I will concede that point. But when it comes to kids that are playing these games and they go and they click on those purchases, those in-app purchases, and it's being charged to mommy and daddy's credit card, or they're stealing the cards from their wallets, that's a problem.
That's a mummy and daddy problem.
It is, but it's still.
That's
I
what
still
you
have.
shouldn't
I
have that
still have
ability.
issues with people being blindsided by these charges and not knowing what they're getting. It's feeding an addiction in my mind. But
Wait,
I
I
will.
think you bring up loot boxes a lot still, and I just don't know what games are still using that system.
There's a lot more that have been actually getting away from that, especially with all the rulings in the UK. Because I know UK
yeah, like-
has recently, as recently as 2019 or 2020, that they recently updated their legislation about loot boxes being, for the most
FIFA,
part,
right?
illegal. Yeah.
Yeah,
FIFA was the
FIFA
major
blew that open.
culprit from that. Yeah.
I think a lot of people hated that too. You had to stipulate what your chances were in a loot box. It is a gamble, but you have to stipulate what your chance would be. Now it's just like, here's the store. Buy whatever
Just
you
go get
want.
what you want. Yeah.
Like there are some live service games, if they're done right, I will enjoy, that I have enjoyed. I picked up Helldivers. I have enjoyed it playing that one with Chewy. I'm looking forward to playing that one with more friends. Monster, I know you're going to be picking that one up eventually. I'm looking forward to being able to play that one with you.
Sony's investing heavily in those games. They see it
Yeah.
as a lot of money to be made.
I
Good
just-
for them.
I just want quality first player games as well. That's my thing. I'm worried that developers will focus too much on live service games and not have enough for the single player games. That's my concern. So we have a lot to cover though with the bracket. So why don't we just jump into that? First of all, Monster, you have an appeal. So we're going
I'm only
to hear that out.
doing one appeal. Love that you guys
That's fine.
recognize it on the pod. Love to all of you for this. But I refuse, and I mean I refuse, to live in a world where Chrono Cross eats Chrono Trigger. It's just I can't have it. We're talking multiple endings. Chrono Trigger had 13. Chrono Trigger was the first Square game to have New Game Plus. Art by Akira Toriyama. Our boy Nobuo Uematsu. Soundtrack done by him.
I don't believe so. I think that was a different
Double check.
composer.
It's him and someone else.
For
No,
Chrono Trigger or Chrono Cross?
Chrono Trigger.
Oh, Trigger. Yeah, sorry. No, sorry. I got a different one for Cross.
A way better party of characters. One of the best time travel stories. The tech system. They just added the materia system. Final Fantasy VII just haunts me always. Final Fantasy 7 came out and they're like Chrono Cross. Like, well, that 7 system really worked. The tech system's better. It's better. It just Trigger had it all. Like, if you're an anime fan, that game was for you. Like the 13 different endings alone. Your lead character, spoilers, Chewie, if you're listening, sorry, Chrono Trigger came out when? I think we're good, right? What was the cutoff?
Well, it came out on the Super Nintendo, so
Yeah, unless you count like PlayStation 1, where they added the cutscenes, or when it came out on the DS. Well, your lead character dies and takes you on a further adventure to get them back. That game seriously had it all. For a JRPG, I think it's still probably the best JRPG ever made. I'm also, you guys know it, 16-bit RPGs mean a lot to me. Like the Super Nintendo had the jams. Chrono Trigger is a shell, or Chrono Cross is a shell of what Chrono Trigger is. They literally put Chrono in it just to convince fans. They're like, we're doing a sequel, and it wasn't even one. The bad guy was the same. So no, I will not have it.
I mean,
Consensus.
it's not like they ever presented any of the Final Fantasies as a sequel to one another either.
Consensus, though,
Yeah,
guys.
no,
What do we?
I think it's a
what do
different
we think?
conversation. I think with a legacy of games that is doing that up until that point. But no, there's no way that Cross is better.
What do you think,
If you
guys?
go off visuals because technology got better, that's insane.
That was my initial argument, is that Chrono Cross did everything that Chrono Trigger did, but newer.
But it didn't. It just stole Final Fantasy VII's system, which I think Chrono Trigger's is better.
Okay, guys,
I
what do
do
you
like
think?
Trigger's tech system.
Okay.
yes.
And the story. That story is just so much better. It's so much better.
I don't know. I kind of liked Cross's
That
story a little
cast
better.
of characters, dude, Robo and Frog, like, what are we doing? I won't have it. If it does, mutiny. Everyone in the comments, wake up.
Unless we give it to you.
I don't think it's going to go any further, but I will have it beat Chrono Cross.
What do you guys think?
Rob, I'll let you go first because this is technically your defense.
I mean, I still have the same defense as I did last week. You can
That
just
is
go back and
the worst Chrono Trigger. Give me this, Rob. I'm not fighting for Tony Hawk Pro Skater 2.
You know what? Okay, here's what I'm going to say. I haven't played either one of these games. If it sounds to me like there was a lot of revolutionized aspects of things. It did bring in a
Yes.
lot to
there
this.
was.
Multiple endings. I think I'm going to have to switch my vote.
Again, everyone's going to hear this bracket today. If you want to hear Monster have one win, this is the one. This is the one.
I mean, Earthbound did beat Doki Doki.
I mean, love you, Rob, but I'd hope so.
I mean, that one was just punching out of its weight class. We said it all last week.
Yeah, but hey, it made the bracket.
Yep.
So, what do you guys think? We need to have one more.
I'll let Trigger go.
Okay. Sorry.
I'm not
Overruled.
getting level game pick.
Overruled. Okay. So, moving on.
Unbelievable.
This is hey, you won your appeal. Let it go. Hey, everyone
All right,
that listened to him
I can let it go.
complain in Cuba. He won.
A Chrono what?
Okay. So, first game in this next bracket, first matchup is The Last of Us Part 1 versus Baldur's Gate 3. Last of Us was my pick. And this one's going to be a very, very tough argument. I'm going to admit that. The Last of Us, I'm going to talk about it briefly, and I'm going to hand it over to Ryder because I know that's on his list, and I love both of these games, so my feelings aren't going to be hurt either way. The Last of Us story was very, very had a huge impact on, like, to me and to a lot of different a lot of players. It is I wouldn't say it was revolutionary, though, in regards to the gameplay. There there wasn't really anything that was added. The thing is, with that particular game, it did inspire, of course, a whole series that's on HBO, and that series, by the way, is done beautifully. I know we're not talking about shows and movies and stuff, but fantastic storytelling. This game, from the moment it started, though, was heartbreaking. Seeing seeing Joel and what really inspired him to be able to move forward and be able to try to survive in a world that doesn't really want people to survive. It was an amazing game, and I absolutely enjoyed it. I will always go back and replay it. In fact, I've paid for it 3 different times. I know Monster's going to have something to say. I bought it on PlayStation 3. I bought the remastered, and then I also bought Part 1. Um, I really enjoyed the game. But anyways, um, I know that there's no way I'm going to have a chance with this one, but I'm going
I
to
don't think you will.
give Ryder a chance to, of course, talk Baldur's Gate 3.
So basically, exact same thing. Fantastic story, amazing cast of characters, but if you're looking at a direct comparison, let's take a look at the two casts of characters and the gameplay styles and compare them one another. How many times have you played through The Last of Us Part 1? How many different endings are there? How many different ways can you play the game?
Well, I mean, you don't have to shoot the nurses at the end of the game. You still
But
do it
essentially,
sometimes,
yeah,
but
but
it
essentially
doesn't impact the
from
story.
yeah, so but essentially from beginning to finish, it's pretty
It's
much one
linear.
path. Yeah, it's a
Yeah,
very, very
it's
linear
linear.
game. Whereas Baldur's Gate 3, you can make any character you want. You can romance any character you want. You can have a good playthrough, a neutral playthrough, an evil playthrough if you're brave enough. But yeah, no, Baldur's Gate, Larian Studios absolutely blew it out of the water when it came to this. They did a fantastic job with Divinity: Original Sins 1 and 2. They've had some other games in the past. I can't remember them off the top of my head, but building off of like the original shell of like Neverwinter Nights, which unfortunately had to take a bow out last week in the play-in rounds. Yeah, no, Baldur's Gate with its gameplay, its replayability, its variance in the storyline, from one playthrough to the next. Like I said, you can get probably, say, 16 different endings at least, or 16 different
The
ways that the game
other,
can finish.
and I've touched base on it too, and this is one of the things that I'm going to end up conceding this one. Is just for the simple fact that the developers thought of everything they could possibly do.
Yeah.
You think, I'm going to try to break this. I'm going to try to do this thing, and it will work. It will absolutely work,
Yeah.
and it's inspired more people to get involved with Dungeons and Dragons as well. So you know what? I'm not even going to bother fighting you on it. I'm just going to concede.
Oh,
And because I know everyone here is going to vote for Baldur's Gate 3. Hell, I'm going to vote for it too.
I'll tell you. I've only played The Last of Us Part 1. There's better stories than Last of Us Part 1. All I hear from Baldur's Gate is the argument that Ryder made. I'm not into that style of game. I'm not. I'll never shoot it down and say it's terrible because I don't like it. I'm willing to read into it and see that, oh, that studio did something incredibly special
Yeah.
for a lot of people. Looking at the bracket, there was just no way Last of Us was going to beat Baldur's Gate 3.
No. And so I will concede, and I'm willing to do that. Baldur's Gate was incredible, and surprise, surprise, I haven't finished it yet.
It's okay. You got to save your energy for the next matchup here, which is also
this one I'm going to fight for a little bit more, and I know I'm going to be up against Irish Bandit here for this one. Final Fantasy VIII versus God of War 2. So I'm throwing the gloves off. This one I'm going to fight for. Irish Bandit, I'm going to give you the floor since it's at the top of the bracket. So let's
See
hear
how
it.
you were with Last of Us Part 1 against Baldur's Gate. I'm kind of that way myself, but I will make my case for Final Fantasy VIII. Great gameplay, great story to go along with it. Wonderful music again by Nobuo Uematsu. The man has not done anything bad. Anything he's done. Yes, the junctioning system was janky as all hell. I will
It's
concede
good.
that one.
The junction
I
system is
enjoyed it.
good.
Yeah,
It is better than the materia system.
But,
I
but
will
once
actually agree with Monster on that one. That part I will
once
agree
you
with
got
him.
used to it, it got a little easier. Like I was be the kind of person who would just get a whole bunch of Kiragas, and just junction them so that I have maximum health going into a boss fight. So, other than that, graphics were great, and it's
Graphics blew my mind
yes,
on the PlayStation 1.
because
It
they
blew
weren't
my
these little.
mind.
Because when you were going from Final Fantasy VII to Final Fantasy VIII, there weren't these little blocky, polygonal little dudes
Hmm.
that all disappeared into the main character when he started traversing the map.
Yeah.
But they were all followed behind him, and they were figures.
Yeah. So God of War 2 is what, of course, what it's up against. Very, very different game. The story alone, I find is better than what Final Fantasy VIII was. It and the gameplay was it actually pushed the story forward of what for God of War. They could have ended it with the original God of War. God of War 2 is what really pushed everything further. Just with the simple fact of how things happened with how Zeus betrayed Kratos and having those showdowns with the gods, and we're starting to work with the Titans. The gameplay was fantastic. And you know when I still remember being absolutely glued to that TV and playing the crap out of that game. Like, I played both games, loved them both. Final Fantasy VIII still one of my favorite games, Final Fantasy games ever made. But the way that God of War 2 was done, it was incredible. As I would fight that, I would say that for me, the story alone was better. Um, and the puzzles alone that they had, the direction that the character went, and how they ended the game, like it was a near perfect game in my mind. Monster, you were kind of nodding there a little bit. Did you want to add anything
God
to
of
any
War
of these?
1 is better than God of War 2. God of War 3 is better than God of War 2. Final Fantasy 8 is in there for my favorite Final Fantasies. As like an emo kid, Final Fantasy 8 was the perfect game for you to play. That was the perfect game for you to play.
I don't know.
That's that's up there.
Yeah, I just
With
remember
PlayStation RPGs.
hearing Rob talking about, like, going the graphics from Final Fantasy 7 to Final Fantasy 8, and how Final Fantasy 8 looked so good graphics wise, and yet all I can think of now is the Squall meme and his jumbled up face during the CD celebration.
You're the most handsome guy here.
You're the best looking guy here. Burp. Yeah.
Yeah. No, Final Fantasy VIII was one of the reasons why I wanted a PlayStation. Games like God of War is what made me want to keep the PlayStation. And that's why I kept going back to that system. So for me, God of War is a system seller. I love Final Fantasy, but God of War is for me is got to take it.
See, and I kind of don't have a dog in this fight because I loved Final Fantasy, but I've never played the original God of War series 1, 2, or 3. So I feel like my vote would be a little biased on this one here, so I may defer this one over to Monster for the tiebreaker.
I think Final Fantasy was the reason you kept PlayStation. I think Final Fantasy still is the reason why some people Talk to all of Japan. They're not keeping their PlayStation for God of War. I think God of War are incredible games, Maverick. It's not a slight at you, but I think the story too of God of War 2 is just like the truest sequel game ever. I don't think the story outdoes 1. I think the conclusion of what 3 does is better than what happens in 2. Final Fantasy 8 to me and like the feelings that game gave me, which would give to you all, I think, was 7. When it comes down to that, is why I would take 8 over God of War 2.
All right. Well, it sounds like the tie has been broken. So
Congratulations,
it
Final
doesn't
Fantasy 8.
have.
Moving on.
Yep, Final
Final
Fantasy 8, I
Fantasy 8's
guess.
going to take on Baldur's Gate 3. Oh boy.
That's Ryder and Rob going head to head. The battle you all want to see.
No, the next
So-
battle
Best of
you all
friends.
want to see.
Yeah.
Next
Yeah.
one is going to be a bloodbath.
I don't think it is. I don't think it is.
Mario 64
I already
versus
know what
Mega
I'm
Man
voting
2.
for.
Who
Let's hear it.
wasn't randomized at all to give these games a shot?
I know. Oh man,
Go or Ryder. I blew it.
Edit that
no
out.
worries.
Ryder, go for it.
God, these two games that absolutely are at almost always at the forefront of the speedrunning community. Oh man, and there's so many different ways to go about it too. Like you've got the any percents, the inner percent glitched runs. You've got the 120 star Super Mario 64. You've got the glitchless Mega Man 2 runs. You've got fantastic music, just so much replayability between the games. Jeez Louise, I don't even know where to begin on this one, to be honest. Like Super Mario 64, I think though it was one that I think that it just became more popular as more people got into it, especially after the speedrunning community. Like you take a look into things today, Super Mario 64 and Mega Man 2 are still both very, very widely played. When it comes to retro games, but I think Super Mario 64 has more audience traction because there's so many more things that can go wrong in 64, and there's so many fun little things that you can do off the beaten path in Super Mario 64. As much as I love Mega Man 2, as much as I love the music in Mega Man 2, like the Metal Man, Dr. Wily Castle Stage 1, those are 2 tracks that will forever be in my mind. Anytime I hear, like, you can recognize those tracks a mile away. But if I had to choose between the two, I would have to lean towards Mario 64. I think that one was also a system seller.
Super Mario 64 defined an era of platforming to this day. I don't know if y'all remember going into a Blockbuster and seeing Super Mario 64 on that kiosk.
No, I don't, because it was always gone.
It's still to this day, Nintendo finds a way to use that formula over and over and still keep Mario incredible. I love Mega Man 2. I absolutely love Mega Man 2. I'm more likely to play Mega Man 2 over Super Mario 64. What Super Mario 64 did for video games in general, it's got to go to the plumber. Like, it has to go to Mario 64.
All right. Well,
it
that's
kills
decided.
me. They had to go head to head at this point.
It hurts. It hurts.
Next one, Chrono Cross. No, kidding. Chrono Trigger. Chrono Trigger versus GoldenEye 64.
All right, Monster. The floor is yours.
Chrono Trigger still holds up. GoldenEye doesn't. It doesn't.
I will agree to that point. I think Chrono Trigger definitely still holds up. There's still a lot of people that play it. But GoldenEye 64, not counting the remaster that came out, that doesn't count. Nobody talks about
GoldenEye
that.
64 on a Nintendo 64.
GoldenEye 64 on the Nintendo 64. How many times in your life do you talk about, you and your buddies going over to some other friend's house to play GoldenEye 64, how many of you devised a cardboard cutout for your split screens so that way you couldn't see each other's screens? How many all-nighters did you guys pull? How many times have you banned Odd Job, from your games because he was so broken? He was, it's not fair. It's like a cheat code. I do really, really wish that GoldenEye 64 did a lot better when it comes to the remaster. Putting this one up against Chrono Trigger is this one's going to be a close one. Actually, you know what? If I'm thinking back to the memories that I had between both games, honestly, I think I had better memories with Chrono Trigger than I did with GoldenEye.
Your argument for GoldenEye is great for the time on that platform because there's nothing like it. I think Perfect Dark came out as the better game, but everyone still kept playing GoldenEye. It's wild that it had, but there's no legs after, and the best movie tie-in game of all time. GoldenEye 64 is the best
What
movie
about
tie-in
Superman
game of all time.
Returns? I'm kidding.
Give it-
I'm totally kidding. I'm totally kidding.
I just think it has to be that moment. If you still got a Super Nintendo and played Chrono Trigger, it holds up. If you like that style of game, Chrono Trigger is up there still. Going next, even in the bracket, it's no win coming out of this.
You know what?
They won't know, but Super Mario 64 has moved on.
So
It makes it tough for either argument, but I would just say, to me personally, but I bet sales-wise would prove otherwise. I bet GoldenEye 64 crushed Chrono Trigger in sales. Absolutely destroyed it.
but we're not talking sales numbers.
Right.
Cool.
What I will say though is, here's the thing: GoldenEye, I remember playing at Rock's place, and I played the hell out of it with him all the time. We had paintball mode on, big head mode. Absolutely loved it. It was fantastic.
Slappers only.
That being said, it was released on Game Pass here. What was it, about a year or so ago? I did try it. Played the first level. No, I'm done. I can't do it.
You would
doesn't
feel
hold
that
up.
way now playing it on a 64.
Yeah.
You would feel that way if you played it on a 64 now.
It breaks my heart to say that, but yes, I agree with Monster on that. I for me, just for the simple fact that RPGs are timeless. GoldenEye, it's dated. I couldn't get back into it. It was one that I loved. I can't play it. I can't play it now. I can't do it. So
Nostalgia goggles help with GoldenEye 64.
yeah.
Remembering those days is great. I will boot up Chrono Trigger and play it again within the next couple years.
Guys, what do you think?
I agree with
Irish?
that.
I gotta vote for Chrono Trigger.
Okay. All right. So we are going to eventually have Chrono
It was a
Trigger.
good run for
versus
Chrono Trigger.
Super Mario.
Good run for Chrono Trigger.
Very good run.
Okay. So the next one, Final Fantasy 14 versus Legend of Zelda: Link to the Past.
We're going again, hey? As much as I love Legend of Zelda: Link to the Past, I think that this one is punching way above its weight class here.
Yeah. Again, the randomization really didn't help me on this one.
Yeah. But Final Fantasy 14, geez Louise. The game has been going for what, we just celebrated our 10-year anniversary with it now. And you know what? If it weren't for the fact that another management team came in and did what they did with 1.0, we wouldn't be having this conversation today. Because 1.0 absolutely tanked, and it tanked hard.
Yeah, you were telling us about that.
They did everything in their power to try and make it good again, but I think they tried too hard to make it like 11, which was really, really good in its own right. I never really got into 11, but when 2.0 came out, when they announced Final Fantasy: A Realm Reborn, they let the what's the word I'm looking for? Open beta. There we go. That's the word I'm looking for. Open beta. And they let everybody try it, and they saw the numbers, and they saw what happened, and they took those numbers and they ran with it. And then Heaven's Word came out, and they expanded the story. They expanded the voice acting. And then they kept going, and we're seeing the next expansion coming up here right away. Again, Nobuo Uematsu, fantastic musician. He let the reins go for this one. Turned it over to Masayoshi Soken, who has absolutely excelled with the music for it. Again, cast of characters, the stories throughout all the expansions. It's a fantastic game, critically acclaimed, I should say,
And
And
award-winning.
to answer the question, yes, there were 5 DLCs. Ryder, of course, touched base on them. Realm Reborn, Heaven's Ward, Stormblood, Shadowbringers, and Endwalker.
And now Dawn Trail will be the new one coming up here right away.
Yeah. So, Monster, thoughts?
It's a tough fight. It could have been World of Warcraft, and my argument would still have a tough one to go up against, right? Like it's aggressive. Like they're popular for a reason. Millions and millions of people play them for a reason. My sense of wonder and exploration, like it took what Zelda on the NES did, just blew it out of the water. To constantly be discovering secrets in Hyrule, it felt incredible. That being said, this Zelda doesn't revolutionize telling a story. It doesn't. But what you experience throughout the world is so fun. Unfortunately, I'm going up against a game where its world keeps getting bigger all the time. With an ever-growing player base. Like the fandom's huge. I'm okay with Link to the Past not beating Final Fantasy XIV.
Oh, but Link to the Past music though too.
And I get it. Listen, like people would say,
Iconic.
like, why don't you guys put Ocarina of Time on there? Because get over it. Ocarina of Time isn't the best Zelda. But yeah, this one too. Like my argument could have been, well, they had to completely do something to fix this game. But then you made the best argument ever. But then they did it. They didn't fail again. They blew it out of the water. And they keep expanding. It's on different platforms now. It's only getting bigger. There's only a certain group of us who are willing to play Link to the Past again. Like there's people who are randomizing it and doing fun stuff with it, but there's a better chance of me trying Final Fantasy 14 now that's on an Xbox than me going back to play Link to the Past.
Full
Which
release
you and
on
I
Xbox.
still need. You and I still need to play that, by the way.
Full release on Xbox, March 21st, by the way.
Yes.
March 21st.
Yes.
Man,
but
yeah, but
Monster, you and I need to get
sport.
into that. Yeah, you and I need to get into that. All right. Next one is going to be another one versus me and Irish. Arkham City versus Final Fantasy. All right. Let's hear it, Irish. You can go
Okay.
first on this one.
It was the game that started it all for Final Fantasy. It practically saved Squaresoft, who was, I think, at that point near bankruptcy. At that point, it turned their fortunes around. They made, because the story that I believe is that they called it Final Fantasy because it was going to be their final game.
That's right.
And then it took off. It became this juggernaut that we are now into 16 mainline games, a bunch of side games, and its most popular title in the franchise has a 3-story remake coming, 2 of which are out already. One's going to be in a couple of years, but going back to the game that started it all, it was just a well done piece for the Nintendo. And the Nintendo had such limitations, but they were able to take those and just run with it. You had the battery. Well, I don't know if this is a good thing or a bad thing, but you had the battery in the cartridge to save your data. So that was, I think other games were doing it at that point, because I know Legend of Zelda did it. I know Baseball All-Stars did it as well. Totally different genre, but you had that. You had just a great selection system for who you could have as your party, a expansive world, and again, music. I will always say music when it comes to Final Fantasy. And the story kind of I like a little more meat on my story, which is one of the reasons why Final Fantasy VII I put up there.
Oh, excuse me.
But Final Fantasy, the first one, had a great story, and it's nostalgia for me as well. It was the first Final Fantasy game I ever played. And that's my argument.
So, was my pick for Arkham City, of course, because I'm not only a huge Superman fan, Batman's a very close second. But I would say that series without Arkham, obviously Arkham Asylum, but was a totally different game. But Arkham City was one of the first open world superhero games that was actually released. The side missions, the world that was created, the backstory was phenomenal. Basically, the Warden Sharp became Mayor Sharp and decided it was a good idea to wall off a section of a city and just send the criminals into this walled off section so that they could have a section of Gotham to rule and to run. And Batman was thrown into the middle of this trying to figure out what exactly was going on and what Hugo Strange actually had planned. That was this event called Protocol 10. The characters they brought in, the how it all tied into Arkham Asylum with how the Joker was sick and how they threw all of these different characters into the game. You had fights with Freeze, Ivy. They had you were able to switch over to Catwoman and be able to fight as Catwoman in some cases as well. Just a well-rounded game. They improved not the graphics, but they improved the gadgets that were available and the free flow combat, which a lot of these other games picked up on as well. Like Shadows of Mordor started using it. There was a bunch that they added to it may not be revolutionized gaming, but it came close. It is the content that they added was fantastic. They had Deadshot, they had Poison Ivy, as I said, Mr. Freeze, Joker, Bane, Killer Croc made an appearance. You have no idea what you're coming across around a corner. It was the first game that ever really did that for me. So maybe I'm seeing the game through nostalgic glasses as well, but phenomenal game. I would love to hear what you guys would have to say about either one of these games.
I mean, I never played Arkham City. I grew up on Final Fantasy, so this is I'm a little biased on the one side of here.
Playing Final Fantasy on an NES is a tough experience.
It is.
Fighting Chaos on the NES is a tough experience. Pain happens, it happens. You dead. You dead. I do like what Rocksteady did with Batman. I do. Arkham City's not my favorite. I could bow down to the rest of the world and say what they did was the most ambitious thing. I don't need an open world every time. I understand some people like that. Sometimes I just find it pads games too much. It's too many Riddler trophies for me to go and collect.
Yes.
That being said, that combat in Batman is unrivaled at the time. That freeform combat is what Assassin's Creed wanted to do when it first came out. And those guys made Arkham Asylum, and they're like, we're doing it better than you. Like, we're going to figure out how to do this better, and it's going to be with Batman. You do feel like the world's greatest detective. It's not just the fighting. It's the actual detective aspects of the game, too. Unfortunately, Maverick, and especially on this list, because now I'm going to get labeled a big Final Fantasy guy. I'm over here trying to fight for Chrono Trigger for Square. But I have to say, Final Fantasy has done more for video games than Batman has.
You had me excited for just a minute, thinking you're going. Just a minute.
It's
just a minute.
It's comes down to as well. Like, I know we like God of War 2 lost to Final Fantasy 8, but like a game I would like more, especially Final Fantasy 1, where it only got better. Like it made it better playing it on that Game Boy Advance re-release they did, and now like the pixel remasters and stuff. I'm sorry, the legacy of Final Fantasy is gonna beat Batman in this case.
He had us in the first half, not gonna lie.
Yeah. All right. Well, I will concede, but I will
don't have to.
say,
It was voted.
yeah, I will concede, but if it's worth picking up, I will say that. Moving on, two very, very different games, but I threw them together anyways. Mortal Kombat versus Sonic.
Who picked him?
I picked Sonic.
I picked Mortal Kombat.
Love that. Here we go.
Go for it, Maverick. I'll let you have the floor first.
Sonic was a system seller for Genesis, in my mind. It was, I remember, okay, so I didn't have the opportunity to pick up a Genesis or SNES or N64. What I did have was Game Busters and being able to rent a Sega Genesis. And every single time that I ended up renting the console, I ended up picking up Sonic. I lost count of how much time I spent playing that game. What Mario did for Nintendo, Sonic did for Sega at that time.
I'll agree with that.
Sonic is still out there. Sonic is still a huge game. Mortal Kombat, I realize, is out there as well still, but to me, Sonic was one of the first platformers as well, and it was a blast. One of the first games I'm sure was ever done for speedrunning as well. It just I had to put it on there. There's way too many times I spent playing that series, playing that game. Then of course you eventually get into Sonic and Knuckles, and they've made family friendly movies and stuff here in the last little while, and it's a great game. I don't know really what else to say about that series and about this game, but it was one of the reasons why I was always excited to be renting a Genesis when I was a kid.
Okay.
Tough night, Maverick.
Hmm?
Tough night.
Yeah.
So my argument for Mortal Kombat, it revolutionized the fighting game genre. It revolutionized, for better or for worse, you can take your pick. It revolutionized video games because it did bring in the advent of the ESRB. It's still going strong to this very day with NetherRealm Studios. They're on Mortal Kombat 1. I've heard it's not that great, but it started a whole
bad.
franchise.
Yeah.
So, and it was the first game that I remember that really had the graphics like it did with the actual actors. And it was the first one I've ever seen, it blew my mind, with that had blood in the fatalities.
Mhm.
I know that shouldn't be a determining factor, but for me, being a kid of 13 years old, seeing this in the arcade, it's like, oh wow, that dude ripped that dude's head off. That was pretty freaking cool, if you ask me. But Mortal Kombat, it's a game changer. No pun intended. It changed the face of video games as we. I feel it changed the face of video games as we know it.
Yeah, especially when it comes to the fighting genre too. Yeah, Mortal Kombat alongside Street Fighter, I think those two kind of go side by side when it comes to, being the face of that particular genre. That's it. It's so hard to try and pick between the two because Mortal Kombat has a
It's
movie,
tough.
Sonic has movies. Mortal Kombat has multiple games currently in circulation. Sonic has games that were a new game that was literally just announced, a week, 2 weeks ago. But yeah, it's hard to say. I mean, I see the arguments for both. I'm having a hard time deciding on this one, actually. I love the original Sonic and what it brought to the table. I love Mortal Kombat and what it brought to the table. Yeah, I don't know. Monster, what do you think?
Well, I think both of these guys didn't pick Mario or Street Fighter, so it makes it hard on me to begin with. But Sonic
another
Adventure just
universe.
not as a challenge. younger. I could beat Sonic. There's Mario games I struggled with for a long time. Like being at a young age trying to get through Mario 3, like every level of Mario 3 is a difficult time. The fun I've had sitting on a couch with someone playing Mortal Kombat, be beaten. It could have been any fighting game. And you're going to feel like I'm picking on you, Maverick. You really are going to feel that way. But sitting beside someone and playing a fighting game is incredible. Same screen. We don't have to gold deny it. We're both on the same screen. We're duking it out. You're learning those fatalities together. And like, again, Mortal Kombat, the first one, isn't my favorite. This is what was chosen. If you would have told me like Sonic 2 was going up against Mortal Kombat 1, the conversation would have been for Sonic 2. Because it added Tails. Did a little bit more. But since it's the originals of both, like I would rather sit on the couch with someone and play Mortal Kombat than play that original Sonic. Me personally. But Pride of Pride.
Ty, you gonna throw it back to me?
Oh,
you.
The deciding factor.
well,
Yeah, I know. This is
Yeah.
okay. I'm still racking my brain over this because I got a couple more arguments I can throw at this one. Sonic, the original Sonic, another great game in the speedrunning community. I love the speedrunning community. We actually have a really, really good speedrunning community here in Saskatchewan. Mortal Kombat, not so much. But on the flip side of things, Mortal Kombat, the modding community, on the other hand, man, have they had some fun with this one. That being said, the original Mortal Kombat modding community isn't quite as in-depth as Mortal Kombat 2. And I'm thinking that's where this argument, I think this is where Mortal Kombat might fall short here, in my estimation. In that the original Mortal Kombat is a little bit more limited in its replayability, in its ability to, I guess, speak to current generations, I guess. I gotta I'm leaning towards Sonic on this one.
roll
We
the
gotta
dice.
try then.
Roll the dice.
I think this is probably one of the closest ones we've had yet.
Who's got the dice?
I do, actually.
Roll it off.
I think I do. Hold on. Ah, we doing a 20-side dice? So what are we
First
looking
one you
for?
grab. First one you grab.
Okay.
First one you grab.
Let's do 6. We got a 6-sided.
Highest roll wins.
Okay.
Yeah, go top to bottom.
Let's
First
see.
roll. What's that?
I was gonna say evens, Sonic, odds, Mortal Kombat.
I'm good with that. 4.
Evens. Sonic?
Yeah.
Is that what
Yep.
it?
I thought Sonic was
Okay.
odds.
No, Easter. No, it was Mortal Kombat. Mortal Kombat was even. Okay. Mortal Kombat it is. No, the dice aren't even on my side tonight. It's a good thing we're not playing D&D. Anyways, so
The great thing ending with this one to just really cap off your award.
Yeah.
okay, Pokemon Black and White versus Uncharted 4.
Wow. So talk about two very different genres of
Really
of
different.
games.
Oh, you were hoping you randomized this better, hey Maverick?
You know what my thought pattern is? It would have eventually gone against one of these games eventually anyways. So
You wanna
a
make it
decision
out,
would have
though.
had.
Yeah. Still,
I've got a couple on the next. I got a couple on the next side. I can make some decent arguments for.
Yeah.
Oh, here we
So-
go.
So my argument for Pokemon Black White. So much as like what I said last time, Pokemon Black White was basically a major face of the Pokemon franchise for many, many years, up until I want to say not Black and White 2, but they did. What were the two that they not necessarily redid, but almost made sequels of? Was it Pearl and Diamond? Was this that they
I
made
know-
a second version of?
That's a great question. I was gonna say like it really broke life into that series for a long time until I'd say like X and Y, like Black and White 2 were the staple competitive Pokemon.
Yeah. And yeah, and that's kind of what my main argument on that too is that it really brought out a major competitive scene within the Pokemon community. Both within the game and in online communities later on. Once online leaderboards and online, tournament communities could be a thing, and music, the music in Pokemon Black White was fantastic. Um, I'd say, yeah, I mean, Pokemon Black White is still talked about to this very day. It's still a very, very widely renowned game within the Pokemon community, even with, the advent of Scarlet and Violet. Great games in their own right, but still not quite as good as Black and White. I think Black and White really set the bar really, really high in comparison to other Pokemon games. So that's gonna be my argument for Pokemon Black White, in that it set the stage for the competitive scene. It set the stage. It set the bar for other Pokemon games to try and match up to.
Okay, well, here we go. Uncharted 4 was my pick. So we've talked a lot about how stories begin and what revolutionized gaming. This was a perfect end to a series, in my mind. The way they wrapped up Nathan Drake's story, the relationship that was developed more with him and his wife, and how everything was concluded was brilliantly done. One of Naughty Dog's best games out there, I would say, in regards to the stories. I mean, an argument could be made for Uncharted 2. But the way that the series concluded and the additions that they added, the relationship with his brother, which was so heartwarming. It's not, it didn't revolutionize much of anything. Unfortunately, the gameplay was exactly what you'd expect. But what made this game shine was the story, and that's always going to be the way this series is for me and for a lot of players out there. Um, the the way that they did the flashbacks were perfect with how they had the story develop between Nathan Drake and his brother, and bringing the character more into a different light. It was beautifully done. It's still going to be it had updates as well for the PlayStation 5. And it really brought more people into the fold, and in regards to the PlayStation fans as well. It was also another game that people weren't expecting. This was the one game that no one thought would ever happen. And it happened. And the action sequences were amazing. There's just so much that they did with this game. I can't talk about this one enough, and it's near the top of it's my top 10 favorite games that were made. I know that I pick a lot of recent games, but this is definitely one of my favorites for sure. Thoughts?
All right.
Well, Rob, what do you think?
Well, I'll be honest with you. I haven't played either of these games. Monster.
Perfect. Like on this list that I've played a lot of these games. It's unfortunate, Maverick, because our feelings just aren't the same on the Uncharted series at all. Like I think after 2, everything was just trying to follow up the explosiveness that was, I'd say, arguably the greatest action game ever made in Uncharted 2. You like the end of the story. I don't think it does anything different than what Indiana Jones has ever done. I don't think it's the end of Nathan Drake, even after that game is over. But what you felt from it is what you felt from it, and I love that you get to take that away. Fortunately, I do love Pokemon, and I really like Pokemon. And Black and White made it now that it wasn't so much geared towards a younger age. There was a nefarious underlining with Team Plasma, with like enslaving the Pokemon for these reasons. I am not so much into the competitive part of it, but getting through it all and collecting the mons and getting through every part of the story, there was more after the Elite Four, like a proper good end game too. And for me, that series just means more. Like I'm telling you, Maverick, you would have picked Uncharted 2. Would have been an easy decision. Would have been Uncharted 2, but I can't. Like it's Pokemon Black and White.
Okay. I will challenge you guys though. Sorry, Ryder. Sorry, I did it too.
I did that again.
Yeah, Ryder. I will challenge you to try that series. I won't harass you like I did for Spider-Man.
I have been looking at
But-
it. I know the Uncharted collection's available on PlayStation Plus. I've been
I
eyeballing it.
recommend it. I highly recommend it.
Go ahead and don't play Uncharted 1. Just don't. You don't need it.
Oh
It's
no,
the worst one.
I would argue that it would be worth playing at least once. It'd be worth playing at least once. Don't replay it, but don't replay once.
Just
But
play it once to
maybe
get the
just
context,
don't.
and that's about it.
yes, exactly. Yeah. All right. Well, I've been outvoted again. So
Don't say
I
it's so
think-
sad.
Your harder hitters are over on the East bracket.
Yeah, I will say that too.
yeah. I definitely have a shot with at least one for sure next week. But that is next week's problem. So we will wrap it up here for tonight. And we will be picking up Division 2 here. Not the game Division 2, but our bracket 2. Here next week. And we will give you a little bit of a sneak peek. So we're going to be starting off here next week with Super Mario World versus Earthbound. So definitely tune in for that. So that being said, we're going to wrap things up. You can find Monster on, again, in My House podcast. Irish
Right,
Bandit,
My House
you'll be
Wrestling
able to find
Podcast.
him on YouTube. And Ryder Pride on Twitch. Of course, he's streaming Final Fantasy VII Rebirth right now. I will also be picking up, a stream here on Saturday. I've been playing Final Fantasy VII Rebirth as well. I'm hoping to get a review out before the 22nd on my page on the New Geek Corner on Facebook. But I'm hoping to wrap that up by the 22nd for Rise of the Ronin, which I'm looking at streaming for that as well. Monster's been kind of pushing me for that. And I will be picking up a stream here with Chewy on Saturday with Helldivers 2. So tune in for that on Twitch. Thanks for tuning in. Make sure you give us a like and subscribe. Thanks for tuning in. Have a great night.